is that session of haki yetu, haki yangu. Sini haki zetu? Yeah, because just reminds me yesterday, for those who are following the finance bill issues, the leader of majority said clearly that the soul of the Constitution is in the Bill of Rights, which is chapter 4, and also says it's the longest of the chapters in the Constitution. So this is that time. So I don't want to get into the panelist time. I'll want to introduce my panelists, and I'll just quickly give the names because I know my first question is going to go to you talking about your organization. So you'll take that opportunity then to tell us a little more about the organizations. On my immediate left, Minayo. What is Angela Minayo from KICTANet? Then Allan Cheboi from Code for Africa. John Okande from UNESCO. And Megan Kathure. Okay, you will tell us. I didn't just get the organization. So I think we're talking about a very important issue actually about human rights and freedoms, touches on all of us. And I think to begin is to understand, because there's so much, like Gigi said in the morning, my freedom ends where yours begins. And when we talk about the internet we want, who are we? Who are we when we say the internet we want? What I want for the internet may be different from Minayo, may be different from Allan. So, in no particular order, I really wanted to be a discussion because it touches on all of us. But my first question that cuts across all of us is you share at least the 3 top challenges of human rights and freedom online from your organizational point of view. We can start at the end, Megan, then come this way.
Thank you, Racheal. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Megan Kathure. I am from GIZ, and I'm glad to be part of this conversation today afternoon. So, right on straight into the question that I've been asked. Since I'm from GIZ and we are representing Team Europe, one of the 3 top challenges to online human rights and freedoms that we identify include, firstly, the issue of data privacy, wherein personal data is being misused and collected or harvested without consent. Secondly, is the issue to do with online hate speech, cyberbullying, and this can suppress the freedom of expression and cause significant harm. The third top online human rights and freedom issue, the third challenge that we see is the issue to do with the digital divide, where disadvantaged and marginalized groups are lacking access to the internet and limiting the opportunity to income to participate in freedom of speech and their participation in the digital economy at large. And I will move on to the next panelist.
Thank you, John Okande from UNESCO, the regional office here in Nairobi. I think from where we sit, UNESCO, for those who are now Googling at the moment, I work with the communication and information sector, and mainly we work around the fields of promoting freedom of expression, media development, that is media diversity and pluralism, be it in platforms and also in the media, and also access to information. I think this is one of the big elements that we are known for globally. And there's also the elements of documentary heritage. For those who've heard about World Heritage Sites, but now from a CI, that is a communication sector, we talk of how do we digitize these elements and make them accessible to people. The biggest challenge in regards to your question on freedom of expression particularly is there's been a long history of advocating and promoting freedoms offline. But now with the reality of digital platforms, we are seeing a rise and a big challenge of how can these freedoms be mainstreamed on digital platforms, but still allow adherence to the fundamental human rights. And you'll find one of the biggest challenges currently we are grappling with is how are these rights reflected in the ever-changing digital ecosystem? and vis-a-vis governments in certain contexts, reactive way of legislating, which there is a balance between allowing the rights to thrive and also censoring these rights. So that is one of the elements that we see vis-a-vis freedom of expression. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Allan Cheboi. I'm a Senior Investigations Manager with Code for Africa. Code for Africa is a civic tech NGO and a civic tech organization that focuses on investigating cases of toxic content on online spaces and producing research and also fact-checking around that specific topic. And that is the topic of information disorder. So, and that's the main challenge that I feel, I need to talk about, and something that we are passionate about as Code for Africa, the problem of information disorder. And this is where we have, the three main buckets that everyone is talking about recently, the cases of mis and disinformation, cases of hate speech, and finally cases of foreign interference, right, in different African countries, and including Kenya for that matter. So as Code for Africa, we take that as a very serious challenge. And, every one of us, given that Kenya, we are just from an elections, we did witness how, the online information environment, social media platforms were being misused by the public, by, several other actors in order to influence decision making, especially during the elections time. But it hasn't stopped there. So I think that has been a consistent challenge. We are still seeing different actors, different malicious actors using these environments to spread disinformation, to spread hate, and also to try and influence public debate and policy development processes. Now that you're talking about, the budget and everything. So we are seeing a lot of coordinated disinformation campaigns or coordinated campaigns online, trying to influence the decisions of, policymakers on that particular context. So that's the main thing that I think is a challenge for us. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Minayo. I work at Kenya ICT Action Network, KICTANet, and I think my work is the easiest on the panel because you're the ones organizing it. Most of you have heard about KICTANet in one context or another. We are an ICT policy think tank, and we try to catalyze ICT policy reforms in Kenya through 4 pillars: policy advocacy, stakeholder engagement, capacity building, and research. At KICTANet, I work at the gender department, and my programs and projects are customized for women, and also women in all their diversity, so not just straight women, but women who also have different gender and sexual orientations. This project, of course, we're trying to tackle issues online, such as online safety for women. We also want to include more women in the internet, and not just the internet usage, but also the internet governance discussions. Finally, at KICTANet, we try to empower women with digital skills so that they can enjoy the dividends from the digital ecosystem, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, thank you. We were supposed to have an online participant? Mr. Omwoyo, is he on? Okay, as he tries to join us, we could then continue. So, of course, I hear issues of freedom of expression having challenges. We're looking at online as an opportunity, but we've highlighted a lot of the challenges, right from inequalities based on gender or sexual orientation and others. We've talked about the offline tendencies moving to the online. You've talked about importance of what you call information disorder, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. So, what are your organizations doing in terms of intervention on the challenges that we've talked about? I'll start with Minayo.
So, as I had said, we've been working on online issues to do with gender. So one of the main issues we've seen is online gender-based violence. This has been an area, a focus for research by KICTANet since, I think, 2009, when we started to look at online safety for women online. At the time, we did not even have any laws or regulations around women's safety online. We've also done policy briefs on trends for online violence against women in politics and online violence during COVID-19 pandemic. Last year, we were supported by GIZ to come up with an e-learning module on online gender-based violence as part of the Digital Enquirer Kit. So this was module 5 of that series of e-learning modules. And this is an open source, free, it's freely available on the internet. You just have to go to Atingi, ATINGI, and just search for the Digital Enquirer Kit courses. And why open source and why do we need a resource on this? It's because online gender-based violence has become quite a phenomenon, and we needed to understand it, and we needed to learn it and teach others what it is, what are the forms, what are the harms, and how can we tackle it. So this was a resource we have come up with. It's interpreted into 6 languages, among them being Swahili. Another of our initiatives has been capacity building, trying to mitigate the impact of online safety online for women is by training them on digital security. KICTANet has been a leader in doing digital security trainings for a long time. But what we did this time that was different is that with the support of GIZ, we customized that training module so that it is fit for women and it addresses the concerns that women have around online safety. So those are quite a number of the initiatives we've done, and I'll leave the panelists to share more.
First on the mic, maybe Megan, you should come right next, because what she's talked about is an issue we raised on inequality. What are you doing in terms of intervention on issues, even what she's raised about digital literacy, specifically for women?
Okay, so we have worked with KICTANet on a number of projects. We have promoted digital skills for Kenyans, especially with a focus on youth and women. We have supported the Digital Enquirer Kit for women and the Digital Enquirer Kit for the youth, which has been implemented by KICTANet and Watoto Watch Network, respectively. We are also working with the Ministry of ICT and Digital Economy in the operationalization of the Kenya National Digital Master Plan. We are collaborating with institutions like the Kenya Data Protection, the Office of the Data Protection, in the operationalization of the Data Protection Act. We are also supporting the development of policies and regulations that will help to create a more level playing field for everyone. For example, we supported in the creation of the first ever national ICT accessibility standard, which was a first for Africa, and a true demonstration of the future of the internet we want and support, just to highlight some of these activities.
Pass the mic on to John. John, what interventions? I know UNESCO is strong on freedom of expression. That's really a forte. Now that we're moving from offline to online, what are some of the interventions?
Within UNESCO, I think we work in 4 ways. As a specialized agency, one, I think, part of our global mandate, which is on freedom of expression, particularly SDG 16.10.1 and also 2. Development of normative instruments, and I think we have published hundreds of guidelines on either to be used for training, policy papers on freedom of expression, for either training judges, security forces, journalists, and recently last year when we had the Windhoek plus 30, which is information for good. It's a declaration on freedom of expression, and I know most of the people here attended that event in Namibia. Besides just developing normative instruments, we also do lots of trainings, and currently we've been running trainings for judges. I think so far in, people say global south, I think we've trained more than 10,000. Those recent trainings for security forces here in Kenya, regional one, where senior police commanders were brought together to get trained on the fundamental rights of freedom of expression, among other elements. We also work with journalists in Kenya. We helped even set up the Kenya Media Sector Working Group, which has been doing a number of things. And more recently, we have this initiative called Social Media for Peace for Kenya, which is a pilot project that has been funded by the EU. And Kenya always has a first, and now they have a national coalition on freedom of expression and content moderation, which brings in together government players, that's Communications Authority, NCAC, Media Council, and peace builders and fact checkers, Code for Africa, and others are in it. And also we have academia, so that they have a common approach towards addressing things like hate speech, disinformation, instead of the reactive measures that we always see, either within legislation and also through court processes. So we're trying to find how best can we dialogue with platforms and come up with solutions, because the platforms themselves acknowledge that there is a problem, and the problem is on content. But how can we work together with the different entities that have a mandate or expertise in certain elements to come up with solutions to address this? And another way that we work, we have these international days that is mainly on advocacy using evidence, like World Press Freedom Day, where every year we give awards to journalists. Last year I think it was Maria Reza, who ended up getting the Nobel Peace Prize also. And also we have World Radio Day. Kenya as a first always marks this celebration every year. Kenya also World Press Freedom Day, it was in May. We also have International Day for Ending Impunity Against Journalists, which is a global event, but in Kenya we always have similar events, and also other 13 plus countries that we cover from Nairobi. And lastly would be partnerships, meaningful partnerships, where we work together with different partners in the region for certain specific causes, where we either provide expertise to certain elements that they are working on that feeds into our mandate. And as a specialized agency, that is typically a work, how best can we support member states. And we don't just limit our support with government, we also work with other players. And one of them has been KICTANet, which has been consistently, I think, ever since. Thank you.
Yeah, so as Code for Africa, we also have about 4 different initiatives that we try to specialize in order to solve the information disorder problem. One of the things is through fact-checking. I'm sure a number of people in the room already know about PesaCheck and the type of work that they do in terms of looking at content and what type of content is actually being shared on digital spaces that end up contravening policy measures and also just deceiving the public on different issues. So fact-checking is one of the initiatives that we do have within Code for Africa through the PesaCheck team. We also develop what we call early warning detection and response systems, especially for toxic content online. And this includes cases of mis and disinformation, hate speech, influence operations, and different targeted harassment, and different other contexts. So what that basically means is working with different partners and institutions, even as part of the content moderation consortia that John has just mentioned, in order to do research, do more in-depth analysis in order to bring to the table evidence-based research that then informs policy development. Because I think one of the things that really lacks when it comes to understanding this information disorder problem is there evidence to support a lot of the analysis, a lot of the decisions that are being made in relation to this topic. The other thing we do is basically bringing together networks. So Code for Africa is present in about 23 African countries, and that means, with that quite a large footprint, we try to also bring in knowledge bases across these different countries in order to understand, the information disorder problem from a more African perspective. And the one thing that we also try to do with this is try to bring together fact-checking organizations and the media that work together as a self-help group or a self-help initiative in order to fact-check content, share databases, share resources for us to be able to understand this problem a little bit more in depth. And we also bring together a number of CSOs that work on this issue in order to better understand and share methodologies, share resources and techniques. And finally, we also engaged in doing what we call media monitoring. And this is specifically looking at how is media reporting on different issues, including issues that affect the information disorder challenge that I've highlighted. So those are some of the things that we are engaged in. And maybe just one more thing is basically capacity building. So we train a lot of media, civil society, and even some, government agencies in order to understand the, best techniques to use in actually researching the information disorder challenge, misinformation, hate speech, targeted harassment, in order for them to make more informed decision making during policy development. Thank you.
Thank you, Allan. I'm told our online panelist has joined us. Mr. Omwoyo, if you can hear us, karibu sana. Mr. Omwoyo is Chief Executive Officer for the Media Council of Kenya, and you're joining at the opportune time when we are talking about regulation of online content. As a regulator, Mr. Omwoyo, what is MCK doing to ensure that we tackle harmful content online? And yes.
Thank you very much, and apologies, I had a few challenges joining. A little personal update is that there is a very strange coincidence to this day, because I am joining from the University of Malta, where I started my Masters in Diplomacy, Internet Governance, and got the Diploma in Internet Governance from the Diplo Foundation. So today I happen to be coming here for the graduation and picking up the graduation scroll, so this is really coincidental. Right into what my thesis was, it was about the challenges facing content regulators in the Internet era. Someone has an echo, I don't know who that is. And the whole idea was about the internet has broken down geographical borders as we know them. And therefore, we have, looking at what we do ourselves, the CA and KFCB and others, we all remember a while back when Citizen TV was forced to apologize for 30 days by the government of TZ. Because if you put your channel on any of the multi-choice channel, you realize that it is available across 11 countries. And when you have a media station based in Kenya, and it is one of the most popular in TZ, then the regulation shows that you cannot regulate up to Namanga and come back. It's all that. And therefore, when you discuss internet governance broadly, it's about realizing that we need a general law of the world. Those who follow the Media Council a bit realized that 2 weeks ago, the East Africa community, we formed the East African Press Council to bring out all the media councils across the East Africa community for common laws and ethics, for common promotions, and for common regulation, because then you cannot have journalists across the border in Uganda operating in different rules from those across the border in Kenya, yet the publication is done the common point and all that. So over time, I will say that what regulation has done is forced us to come together. They were talking about common markets, common approaches to development and all that. For as long as we discuss internet penetration, we must discuss common rights, common freedoms, and common principles. I note that we're working very closely with KICTANet on one side and the UNESCO East Africa Region Office, my friend there, we appreciate. So over time, from the Media Council, just realizing that you cannot regulate anything on the internet based on a county or a geographical country and all that. It just breaks borders and moves, and we are working around that, realizing that then general laws about the internet and making sure that these regulations are cross-border. It promotes democracy, promotes access to information, promotes press freedom, and actually eventually make sure that you can engage in transfusion, cross-border transfusion to upgrade skills and better media consumption under the Media Information Literacy Program. Thank you.
Mr. Omwoyo, and congratulations on your graduation. We are happy that you're getting into this space, the internet space, so we'll be getting more regulation. I'll still go back to my first question, and I would want us to actually make it as interactive as possible, give more time to the plenary than to us. Since the panelists have all introduced themselves, the work they do, the initiatives, I'd want to hear from the floor or to get the questions from the floor. And as they do that, I just need to hear from the panelists, each one of us. When we say the internet we want, who is we? Who are we? I welcome questions from the floor. First one here. Let's take let me get 3 hands. So the first hand is here. Second. Right here, that is second. That's third. 3, yeah? Did I say 4? Okay. We can go with a round of the first 3, and then we'll take the next 3.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Racheal. I'm the country manager for Hindsight Ventures. So my question goes to Mr. David and Allan in terms of regulation of online content. Where has the line been drawn between content creation and, say, hate speech and cyberbullying? And what mechanisms do you use as an organization to distinguish between the two? Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Good afternoon. My name is Christine Magoma. I work at the Africa Center for People, Institutions and Society, in short, ASAPs. I'm the communications officer. My question is a compilation of what we have been discussing the whole day. And one keyword has been stakeholder collaboration, stakeholder collaboration, stakeholder collaboration. But we are all aware that he who plays the piper dictates the tune, right? So when we are addressing content moderation and everything around it, we have got to be very aware that many of these stakeholders who come to the table to support such initiatives have their own interests sometimes. For instance, private sector. When we look at organizations or companies like Meta, they want to be involved and they are actively involved in ensuring the digital spaces are safe. But we're looking at a global level and we have community guidelines, and as Marcy indicated earlier on today, these are globalized and community guidelines are there to keep everyone safe. However, looking at a context level, content versus context, in Kenya we have hate speech, as the panelists have indicated, and this hate speech is not necessarily in English, it's in local languages. How then do we bring these people to address these issues from a local perspective, in as much as we have David online who is talking about ensuring that we discuss internet penetration and rights and regulations also from a global perspective. We cannot ignore the local perspective because we who are here understand it. We all understand English. But there are people in different counties of this country who don't necessarily communicate on these digital platforms in English or in Swahili, and this information affects them. They consume it and they believe it to be true. So how then do we address that? Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer, just in case you think I'm someone else. My name is Jennifer. I don't know if it's a question or a concern, okay? And it's something that has been biting me for a long time, and it's a good thing this panel is talking about human rights. I'm a human rights practitioner. But when it comes to the internet, I think there's such an emphasis on protective rights, okay? So let's protect children online. Let's protect, and I'm glad the guy from UNESCO is here. What can we do to promote children's rights? Sorry, I work with kids. Sorry if I say children, because I work with children. I work with Mtoto News, a children's platform. And what we do for us is we help children navigate the online space. We do not remove children from online. We do not emphasize. But what I hear over and over since morning, it's an emphasis on protective rights. Okay? What about participation rights? Okay? What about developmental rights? Okay? So we have other categories of rights, and why do we emphasize as human rights practitioners on the protected? Yes, I know. Please, before you hashtag me, I know children. I know because that's my specialty, children. I know there's abuse happening, but as I said, it was not a question, it's more of a concern. My concern is the more we sell the negative side of technology, the more we are deterring a lot of young people and children from taking advantage of all these opportunities, because Ali here will be afraid to allow their children to navigate the online, because as human rights defenders, Yeah, oh, haki zetu, protect, online safety bad, So we are, in our activism, denying children from enjoying other forms of their rights. And I think I'm done. If I had a question from there, you can be able to answer it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We'll take those three. The panelists will go through them. John, we'll start with you because I think the last question on participation rights, development rights.
I'll speak to what we advocate. One, there's an initiative that is ongoing that was mentioned today by Dr. Ngundi, and that is we're coming up with the global guidelines for regulating tech. I know most people would wonder, why does UNESCO want to regulate tech? How we are structured, UNESCO has more than 190 member states. So meaning countries are represented in the executive board. And it's a collective interest of the countries when they put forth to our executive board that this is what we need, that these are the problems that are happening, then it becomes an agenda and we pick it up. And then currently we have version 3 of the guidelines that are being prepared. And it's always a multi-stakeholder approach towards preparing this because we need as much voices towards that process. And you'll find rights networks that work with children, that work with young people, tech platform, actually Meta and TikTok, the guys who attended the Internet for Trust conference, all these tech companies were there telling us, this is the problem, how can we work together? So we sort of support causes that not everyone will agree with the outcome of that product because you need as much diverse voices as possible. But the moment you have consensus on certain fundamental things like human rights, but now I can't say much about rights because that's not the very specificities of children's rights. I don't work in that space, but one thing that we are trying our best to ensure, particularly on the online space in the different initiatives that we're doing, there are fundamental rights that needs to be mirrored in the different initiatives or even in the spaces that we work in. So is it important for certain countries? How do we work together? And that's why there's this coalition that came up. Because we see reactive initiatives where we see there's this issue, let's deal with it. Most of the times there's duplication of initiatives, particularly on addressing, let's say, hate speech and disinformation. But if you come together, and recently, I know Meta guys are here, and when the coalition was founded, we talked with a few colleagues and they said, okay, how can we now incubate fact-checking in local languages? Because in the onset of the project, there were 2 assessments that were carried out specifically for Kenya, and I think Kenya is always a first because Social Media for Peace project is in the 4 continents. In Africa, it's only in Kenya. And one of the things that came out in the studies was hate speech now, it's not only in English and Swahili, it's actually in our local languages, Kikuyu, Luo, Luya, and other languages in Kenya. But now you have people willing to sit on the table and work with multi-stakeholder. I'm digging into Christine's question. How can we work together to address these causes? From our side, we are not prescriptive. We will help prepare the instrument through a multi-stakeholder process, and it's up to member states to adopt those instruments. If it doesn't work for them, that is fair enough. But for us, for causes that will help make the digital ecosystem healthier for young children, for young people, and even other stakeholders and citizens, we will be able to support those causes. I hope I have, she mentioned something about context and content. I think it's important that even besides just hate speech and disinformation, we've seen most of initiatives being parachuted within our context. One thing that came out during the assessments that we were doing on hate speech and disinformation in Kenya, and we were working closely with even Code for Africa, Build Up and others, Article 19, is at times it's a deliberate hate speech thrives, and most of these platforms, at times consciously or unconsciously, cut away from dealing with these elements because of our fragmented legislations. We are heavily, we have so many laws. NCIC, I'm sure they're here. One of the discussions we had with them, they said, okay, we have all these instruments, but we can't hold anyone accountable. Because the definition of hate speech within our context, it was after an event, and that was the post-election violence. Right now we have all these new elements coming up, AI, among other things. How fast or how often do we reflect the current context vis-a-vis the existing legislations? So I'll end there. If there's anything, I will come back. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll probably just jump in on the first two questions from Claire and also from Christine. So in terms of content creation, vis-a-vis, hate speech and cyberbullying, I would actually say, content creators have the freedom to express themselves, to share information, and, and at the end of the day, I think one statement that Grace mentioned earlier on is, my freedom online ends where yours starts, right? So the one thing that we need to insist on is, as content creators, are you actually going against policy formulations? Are you, even just from a perspective of humanity, yeah? Are you targeting a particular, are you infringing on the freedom of expression of another person? So that should be a guiding factor in terms of understanding what you're doing as a content creator vis-a-vis, contributing to the problem of information disorder or toxic content online. There's one example that I'll use. There are a couple of research that we've done, and one day we found a network of influencers and several other individuals who are contributing to a conversation using a hashtag that was considered to be hateful, right, here in Kenya during elections. Then all the accounts that were contributing to that trending hashtag were taken down, including for these influencers and people who were just using the hashtag to promote either products or content that they produced. But think of it this way, the social media companies implement automated way of detecting and countering toxic content online. So if you are involving yourself in a hashtag that is trending, that is considered to be hateful or contravening the policies of the platform, and your account ends up being taken down, then you should try and judge that action that you did in the first place. So I would probably say, for that context, we need to look at specifically as content creators, what are the policies implemented by the platforms, by the that you're on, that you're sharing your content, and does it also go against the freedom of expression or the freedoms of other people online. Then on Christine's question, I think, and this just sits in also from what you asked, Claire, in terms of addressing local context. And we've seen several cases where this is happening. The one thing that I would like to mention is, local context is very important. And this is also, of course, advocacy to Meta, to Twitter, to all the other platforms that are currently in the room. We need to also try and consider local context, because one of the research that we did during the elections, especially when it comes to hate speech, harassment, and all that, as John said, it's spoken in local languages, and sometimes it's really coded. So it's not really a language, it's actually a term being used, but only someone in Kenya will understand. So automated, ways of monitoring for that content will not succeed. You'll probably need human intervention, and especially people with local context to do that. And that's why we're advocating for them to hire, and empower local people or organizations in order to help them solve that challenge. An example that I think is really important for us is we're currently in discussions with Meta, with TikTok, to be able to develop what we call lexicons. And lexicons are basically lists of keywords that are accompanied by context that are, regionalized in order, for example, here in Kenya, if someone says madoadoa, that, will not be flagged, it will be flagged as hate speech in Kenya, but in Tanzania, who still speaks Swahili, it's a different thing. So with context to that particular word, then, these terms and lexicons that are agreed upon, including by the public, and there's contribution from the public, but also from experts, in order to understand the linguistics about how online discussions are happening and the context, in order for these social media platforms to take action and not infringe on freedom of expression. Thank you.
go ahead? Okay. All right. I'd like to respond to Jennifer. You raised two issues, one on child online protection, and secondly, on what we're doing in terms of promotional aspects of human rights vis-a-vis protective. I'll speak from my work at KICTANet that we have been doing a lot of promotional activities that are steering away from the anti-tech, tech is dangerous narrative. One of them is that in the course of the KIGF week, we trained 31 women on how to use civic tech for public participation. I think that is a very clear example that we are looking at tech as an enabler of human rights, and we are tapping into it to enable women to participate more in public participation. These 31 women are going to give submissions to the Communications Authority of Kenya on an upcoming regulation on fair use of technology. So I think that is a step in the right direction. Another initiative by KICTANet is our digital accessibility program, which tries to have persons with disability have a voice in the internet governance discussions and advocate for themselves. We have this project to be owned. The project is owned by persons with disability. So the fellows are persons with disability, and the person leading the project is a person with disability. So there's a lot that goes on in the background, and sometimes you might not see it, but there is a deliberate effort to make tech as inclusive as possible. On the issue of child online protection, while the Communications Authority of Kenya is not here, I can just speak on the work that they're doing. And that is that they have come up with a child online protection guideline. I'm sure you know about it. And they're also planning to have a survey on child protection in Kenya, which is going to be surveying, they're going to be asking questions to children, teachers, and parents. I think this is a good initiative, and during the stakeholder engagement, KICTANet aired some of its concerns regarding child online protection. So we raised our concerns and the questions that we want to be captured in the survey. So I can assure you that stakeholders are working on child online protection as well as making using tech as an enabler for human rights.
Well, I don't think there was a question that was directed to me, but one thing I would like to say is we need to recognize that the composition of our society is not homogenic. And on that account, we must be humble to listen and engage from different perspectives. We must be willing to cede power to different communities, because different communities are experts of their own lived realities. So we must be willing to engage with people at an equal level, not engaging people just to speak at them, but to be humble enough to cede power, to listen and meaningfully engage with them. Thank you.
Mr. Omwoyo? I hope you're hearing, you're still online. It would be good if you gave us your perspective on the issue raised especially by Jennifer on being more protective than allowing participation of children and development of children. Mr. Omwoyo.
Yes, thank you. I posed a bit of what we did about content regulation and all that. That is just the cover of my thesis. I will be posting the abstract. The truth is that we need to be aware of the dangers of overregulation. Internet and content creation is about creativity and all that. So if we just come down on anyone with rules and regulations, we forget it all the time. We need to do more of setting very broad rules of engagement and being facilitative. Funds for creativity, content, how, facilitative. Kenya, we are fairly ahead in East Africa. My friend Racheal tells me that we are at 97% 4G penetration. That means that then people can develop content wherever they come. Any of you have seen content developed from very good villages in different places. So as we discuss about regulation, we must realize that the internet is just a channel. If we lose values and lose several principles and forget what brings us together as a country, then we will end up just engaging in just sets of rules and regulations with no development. Well, ideally, the internet should be able to help people move forward. As you see from the abstract, was that you can't use regulation from a perspective of stop come and do. You must allow people's brains to develop and all that. Yes, we have rights to privacy, rights to protection from bad content, the rights to protection from fake news and all media information literacy and all that. But we must look at the internet as a superhighway, a facilitator, you know. So if you develop a superhighway and bring bombs on a superhighway, you do an SGR and then bring bombs all over and checkpoints on an SGR, then you miss the point. Ideally is that we must look further and see that the regulators, KFCB and others, we are just a very little notch at the tail end of human development. So yes, but we have, as the regulators, we have reflected about our role really to be more of facilitative so that you inculcate values and principles in development and put more money in making sure there is something being developed than just putting, all over, checks and balances and bumps and all that. So I would say that what we need now, especially as we move in the whole idea of internet content regulation, is about facilitating and developing and inculcating values more and more as we proceed. Thank you.
Okay, I haven't been warned, so I think I can do a quick round. If there are any more questions, maybe 3. First one there. Okay, I only see one question, so that will be the last question. Please go ahead.
It is on it? Okay, there it is. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Sigi Waigumo Mwanzia, consultant at Internews. My question, well, thanks to the moderator and to the panelists for a fantastic session. My question is directed to the UNESCO representative. I wanted to find out when you talked about adopting a proactive rather than a reactive approach. My question relates to the coalition specifically. What proactive initiatives relating specifically to the adaptation of the law is the coalition pursuing? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm warned that we have, that was the last question, so you can go ahead, John. Then we'll do the last recommendations.
Thank you. You whispered your name, so I'll just say thank you for that question. Mwanzia, yes. Maybe just in a minute, how the coalition came up. There were 2 assessments that were done. There was a series of trainings that were done. There was a series of national consultations that were done. KICTANet here is an active member of the coalition, so they've been in different spaces, reflecting on different issues, and the coalition itself has a set of recommendations on what they would want to do. How the coalition came about after all these evidences were up, it is an opt-in model where an organization expresses an interest to join the coalition and has an explicit mandate on some of the things that the coalition sort of wants to address. In terms of initiatives that the coalition is doing and reflecting on, one, it's structured into 3. So there are policy issues that the coalition would want to have dialogue around it. So for example, I can tell you from NCIC, our colleague is even here from NCIC, one of the elements that came out through the research that was done on it's the definition of hate speech. And they feel internally from the organization and also other stakeholders that its definition has been limited to what happened in 2008, 2007. So with the new things coming up, AI, lots of changes within the digital space, and remember the definition was mostly offline. didn't have much reflection on what goes on online, because from 2008 till now, there's a lot that has changed within the digital space. So if we can say a policy area that would be interesting to dig into, that would be one area that the coalition, if they feel that is what they would do, because from UNESCO side, we will not prescribe, and that's why the coalition itself came up with a list of recommendations. In strengthening capacities, one of the elements that came out that some of, among regulators, there are certain elements that they need to know about: digital rights, digital safety, freedom of expression, and how that is reflected within the online space. There are also elements of some officers within the regulatory area, fact-checking, among other skills that they want to learn and transfer those skills. I'll give you one example, like in the coming weeks, Aga Khan will be doing a TOT for regulators, peace builders, and some people from academia on conflict-sensitive reporting. But now reflections is on fundamental rights and the digital spaces. So it's the coalition that prescribes what they want, and we provide them the platform together with other partners, EU and other stakeholders, so that they can address that issue. So we're trying to look, if it's TOTs, that is long term, they can go back and transfer those skills. If it's advocacy, how can we come together? Recently, we had members of the coalition participating in the Africa Media Convention, where they showcased what is happening in Kenya. Members of the coalition were also, I think, led by PS Kisiangani, were in the Internet for Trust conference. That was at a global level. And then more and more, they're plugging into to see what are the best practices, what can work here, how can we come with more localized solutions to the things that we're grappling with in regards to hate speech and disinformation. So just a few, but we can discuss bilaterally if you still want us to talk about it.
Okay, thank you, John. I'll start from Mega, coming in this direction. Just your recommendations in going forward, what you think needs to be done to ensure that everybody is secure and safe and enjoying the online spaces.
All right, so for the promotion of digital rights in the Kenya's digital space, I would recommend 3 best practices. One would be education. That is the need for widespread digital literacy and cybersecurity education to equip individuals with the necessary skills to protect themselves online. Secondly would be policy. There's a need for advocacy for robust practices and policies and laws that uphold online rights and ensure data protection and combat harmful content. And then lastly will be collaboration. There's need for active involvement of multi-stakeholder groups in digital governance processes to ensure that the interests of all segments of society are considered and protected. In closing, let us all then take up our space to shape the internet we want in Kenya, which will be a tool for empowerment, growth, and positive social change. Thank you.
Which is this internet we want?
The internet that we want, top of my mind, I would think it's critical to have a responsible citizenry that consumes internet products. So from our side, what I would think of advancing or promoting media and digital information literacy competencies. And we can look at it either supporting a government, how can they mainstream certain competencies within educational curriculum? And this can cut through from ECD level to university level. We tested it in Kenya with Rombo University that now has a compulsory course on media information literacy. So these are some of the low-hanging fruits that we can work with. But I believe the bulk also is with us. How responsible can we be within the digital space? And what are those competencies that we need to create a healthy internet space? Thank you.
For me, I would say the internet I want is an internet that is safe for all. And what that primarily means is, every stakeholder doing their responsibility and doing the work to make sure that it is safe for children, as she mentioned, it is safe for women, it is safe for different other marginalized communities, to converse in these online spaces or digital spaces. And I think my recommendation will primarily be to ensure that we have a collaborative approach to making sure that the internet is safe. Government participants, the private sector, civil society organizations, everyone we need to all come together in order to make sure that this happens. Thank you.
For a long time, speaking from a women digital rights perspective, for a long time we've been fighting the ills that have been brought by technology, and I hope that stakeholders present will start thinking of how women can thrive in the internet ecosystem, so that we can leverage the power that the internet holds, so that women and structurally marginalized groups can have their lives improved and not have gender biases that already existed before become worsened by technology. Thank you.
Mr. Omwoyo, are you still there? Thank you very much, all panelists. I hear you loud and clear. I think what has come across is the need for responsibility on everybody's part. Again, to quote Gigi from the onset, your freedom ends where mine begins. That is the rallying call. When you talk about freedom of expression, it is not free speech. It is actually guided by principles, very clear principles and values. And so much as we do not want regulation, there's need for safety. So it's important that they are regulated and they work within a very given space. Let us appreciate our panelists this afternoon and your participation. Thank you very much for getting time to be here. And thank you all for being very active participants. Again, a round of applause for yourselves.